We are just one day away from kickoff between the Utah Utes and Colorado Buffaloes, and we have no idea if Devin Dampier is going to play. But I still believe, regardless of who starts at QB for the Utah Utes on Saturday, they're getting a Big 12 win.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time listening to the show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Mazda Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. My name is JT Wistrcill, and on today's show, we got to talk about a few different things with this Utah Utes team. We're going to talk about, hey, is Byrd Ficklin going to be the guy that the Utah Utes turn to here? Is he ready to go and guide this team to what is a much needed and like a must win Big 12 game for the Utah Utes? We're also going to talk about, hey, what's going on with the national TV ratings with the Big 12, because there's kind of some interesting stuff as it relates to Utah. And we're just going to continue to talk about too this Utah-Colorado game. But let's start with what's been the biggest story of the week, Devin Dampier's availability. And unfortunately, from yesterday to today, we don't have much of an update. We have the latest Big 12 injury report came out, and Thursday's update is really nothing's changed. I will say there's a couple other guys who their injuries have changed, but as it relates to Devin Dampier, he is still questionable. And it's unfortunate for Utah that you are in a position now where if you want to make the Big 12 title game, reach Arlington and accomplish Big 12 championship, college football playoff berth, all that stuff, you have to win out if you're Utah from here. It's the only way you really get in. I don't see how a 3-loss team gets into the Big 12 title race. You have to be perfect. And the fact that you play a conference game without your starting quarterback is scary. But I do think Utah is more than capable. And in fact, I think they will win if Byrd Ficklin starts against Colorado. Let's talk about Byrd Ficklin, right? He's been such a fun story to cover all season long. Whether you go back to spring ball, this early enrollee, he was a commit that didn't even commit to Utah till like December, I want to say, but ends up being an early enrollee guy. And right away, him and Isaac Wilson are in a great battle for the backup quarterback job. He ends up pulling ahead as the season kind of goes on, not even in spring ball, not even fall camp, because originally Isaac Wilson was the backup. But after even just a few weeks into the season and some strong practices, Witt said that Byrd is the guy. Now it was 1A, 1B is what Jason Beck said a while ago, but it's pretty clear now that Byrd Ficklin is the backup quarterback for this team. And you got to be excited about what Byrd has been able to do so far on the season. Yes, the 9-for-9 passing is nice, but only 138 yards, a touchdown, like that is coming garbage time. I've loved what I've seen from him as a rusher. 17 carries, 111 yards, averaging 6.5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. He looks very comfortable with the ball in his hands, even though he is only a true freshman. And the reason I feel good about Utah going into this game against the Buffs is styles make fights. Utah, the best rushing team in the Big 12, and they face a Colorado team that when you're talking about the Colorado Buffs rushing defense, they give up 188 yards per game on the ground. Them and Kansas are tied for the worst in the Big 12. And a reminder, this Utah offense best at running the ball in the country. They're 6th in rushing yards per game and 1st in the Big 12 at 245 yards. This Utah Utes offense that uses an extra offensive line more than anyone else in the country. So just punch the Buffaloes in the mouth repeatedly. Make this game ugly. Utah doesn't need to drop back and throw it 30, 50 times, whatever. No, in fact, if I'm Utah, I don't want Byrd Ficklin throwing the ball more than 20 times in this game. Why would you put your true freshman in a position where he has to make plays with his arm in a pivotal game? And we just haven't really seen him be able to do that because, simply put, his passes have all come in garbage time. When there isn't that stress, when there isn't that pressure, and when you're going, this will be by far the best defense he will have had to complete a pass against in a meaningful moment, right? Like, yes, maybe the Arizona State defense is better. He completed one pass there, but like we said, that was in garbage time. So this is a big spot for Byrd. But I do believe that Jason Beck is going to be ready for this game. He did not have a good game last week, a good game plan for the BYU Cougars. The Utah offense struggled. Part of that was Dampier. Part of that was the receivers. Part of that was Jason Beck. So I think Jason Beck's going to come into this one saying, okay, what can I do to put my quarterback in a position to succeed. And I think he's going to do a good job of that, whether that is a lot of designed runs. Let's also just say this, like Byrd Ficklin isn't the biggest guy in the world. If we're going to run between the tackles, I want that to be the running back. So if you're going to run Byrd, you can run to the outside a little bit. If Byrd wants to scramble, that's fine too, because running quarterbacks have really hurt the Buffaloes on the season. So I'm totally good with Byrd being a scramble guy, but I'm not just slamming in between the tackles, because that's part of the reason that Dampier got hurt is we overran him, honestly. You got some talented backs. I want to let those guys eat, and I want to run them frequently in this game. But if you're Utah, make things easy when you do need to throw the ball, right? Whether it's play action passes, RPOs, like a lot of 1-2 read stuff, right? Don't make Byrd Ficklin have to sit back there and pick apart a Colorado defense that, yes, their secondary isn't great, but you don't want to make Byrd Ficklin like have to make those tough decisions and thread into tight windows over and over again, because that's just not something a true freshman is usually going to do at a high level. There's even a reason like a BYU team, right? Like Bear Bachmeier's made some nice plays, but his best have come on the season with his legs. He is not a guy who just sits back there and picks you apart from the pocket. Most freshman QBs aren't. Byrd Ficklin, no exception. So if you're Utah, run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, and let Byrd Ficklin be part of the reason you win this game. Do not put the entire game on your true freshman's shoulders. Put it on the offensive line shoulders. They're capable of carrying the load in this game, and I do think it's a Utah team that has an advantage going against the Buffaloes team that, if this is your first time listening this week, we thank you for watching in. This is a Buffaloes team. They're 12th in the Big 12. They're 3-4. We had Kevin Borba of Locked On Buffs on yesterday. He feels like they're a little better than that, but let's also just look over at what Colorado's happened to them on the year. They lost to Georgia Tech. That's not a bad loss. Georgia Tech's a really good team, but it's still a loss. You get blown out by Houston, lose by 16 on the road, 36-20. How about this team just also hasn't fared well on the road at all. You look at the game they went to TCU. They lost that one 35-21. Was that a little closer and got out of hand late? Yes, but the Horned Frogs still were the better team in that one and found the way to win. They should have beaten BYU at home, and they're coming off an impressive win against Iowa State. Caden Salters has started to play better, but that doesn't change the fact that for the most part, this defense hasn't been great on the season. We mentioned a couple of these games, right? You get a Houston game, they score 36. You let a TCU score 35. Teams, this Colorado defense has not traveled well on the road on the season. And Utah, we know how well they play at home. It's an offense it's a Utah offense that operates well in Salt Lake City, and it's a defense that really gets after you with the noise level, the Musk getting after it the way they do, the altitude. And I know it's not a big thing for the Buffs, but we also just like frequently when you see teams come to Salt Lake City, and also I'll just say this, like teams that are in a very similar position to Colorado, right? Teams that are struggling and don't have elite quarterback play, those teams usually don't fare very well against a Morgan Scalley defense. And I think the Utah defense is going to do their job. To me, the Buffs should not score over 20 points in this game. When you look at Morgan Scalley and this Utah defense and probably how they're frustrated with their performance last week too, let's really shut down this Colorado team. It's a Colorado team that's got some talented receivers, and the offensive line is pretty good, but you have one of the best defensive lines in college. You have one of the best pass rushes in college football, and you still have a pretty dang good defensive line. One of the better ones in the Big 12, I'd still say, even if they left some plays out there on the field, I'm sure they wish they could have back against BYU. So throw this offense off. Do not let the Buffs run the ball and get to Salters, affect him, and make plays. Obviously, that's easier said than done. And which Utah Utes do I think are going to have outstanding performances outside of maybe even Byrd Ficklin? Because I think he might have an outstanding performance too. That's what we're going to talk about in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at Mazda. How great is college football, right? And Mazda makes it even better because Mazda helps move the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move cultures, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moving the game forward moment is, I'm going to say it's going to be coming up. I think it's going to be a play that John Henry Daly makes, right? How many times have we seen throughout the season he come up with a big sack? He's got 10 on the season. He's been an absolute wrecking ball off the edge, one of the best pass rushers in the country, can win in a bevy of ways, great hand moves, good power, a good motor as well too. He has continued to move the game forward, and he's going to continue to help this Utah defense prevent opposing offenses from moving forward. But when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. You can check out Mazda's inventory today. The Utah Utes got a big clash coming up with the Colorado Buffaloes. So how do I think the Utah Utes are going to fare? Well, I think Utah's going to win. I think I changed my score prediction from yesterday, but I got time. Doesn't until kickoff, so I can lock in a different one. I'm going to take the Utah Utes to win this one 33-17. I think Dylan Curtis is going to kick a lot of field goals in this one, or excuse me, 31-17. I think Utah is going to kick some field goals here. Dylan Curtis will have some moments, and the Utah offense will do well, but I think they'll falter at times with the backup quarterback in there, but I think the defense will deliver. So let's start with Byrd Ficklin. How do I think Byrd Ficklin's going to perform? I think he's going to do pretty dang well. I don't think Utah is going to make him have to be crazy. As I said, allow the offensive line to eat, establish the rushing game, and I do believe Utah will do that. Yes, the Buffs were able to slow down LJ Martin when they played BYU, but slowing down this Utah offensive line, especially coming off the frustrations they had last week, being back home in Rice-Eccles Stadium too, with just how strong and tenacious this unit is. It's one of the 10 best in college football. I think they have success establishing the ground game. And I think Byrd Ficklin's part of that too. I have him rushing for 60 yards in this game. Some of that on design runs, but a lot of that too, I think will be scramble on some key spots and plays. And I think he is capable of making some of those Buffs defenders miss in the open field too. I have him running for a touchdown while also throwing for one. I don't think he's going to throw over 200 yards. In fact, I think he's going to be closer to the 150 mark. He's going to pick his spots well and make some plays with his arm in this one. Like I said, a lot of 1-2 read type of plays, RPO play action type for Utah, make the game easy for Byrd. I think that's what Utah's going to do, and I think the defense will allow them to do that. And the other thing that's going to make it easy for Byrd is Utah's success on the ground. I think Wayshawn Parker is a really good game in this one too. Utah's going to get back to running in the tackles. Daniel Bray had his big performance last week. I think we go back to NAQUIR, Rogers, and Wayshawn Parker. BYU chose to really try to pack the box and really shut down the inside game of the Utes, the inside runs between the tackles. I think that BYU was able to do that with some of the linebackers they have, because they have some of the best linebackers, not just in the Big 12, but I'd even say the college football. And Colorado doesn't have that. They have good players on the defensive side of the ball, but I don't see them having that same defensive success that BYU did. So I think Utah does get back to running between the tackles. And like a Daniel Bray will still be effective, but I think it's going to be close to like 30 yards in this one. I don't think the jet sweep, the motion game is going to feast like it did this last week. I think between the tackles and turning back to your two top backs, it's going to be Utah's recipe for success. I have Wayshawn Parker going for 70 total yards in this one. I think I'll have about 55 on the ground and probably about 15 through the air. I do have him getting in the end zone. Let's not forget, yes, Wayshawn Parker and NAQUIR Rogers, not the most effective last week. Wayshawn Parker, even in a down performance, he's still averaging 6 yards per carry, has 60 carries for 358 yards on the season. I want to continue to feed him, and I still think he's going to have a big performance on the season. I also think NAQUIR Rogers is going to have a nice performance. It's still a guy who's averaging over 4 yards per carry and has been a strong back for the Utah Utes all season long. So I think NAQUIR Rogers is another guy who gets to work in this game, just a hard runner, physical. Parker's got more speed to me and is able to shake defenders out of a little more tackles, but Rogers still capable of making guys miss. He'll run you over. I think he gets a quality 50 yards in this one, and Utah will be rotating those backs out frequently. And as I said, too, a lot more success in between the tackles, which is not as much the freshman Daniel Bray's bread and butter. So I think you see a lot of Rogers and Parker are the guys for this Utah team between the tackles. I think the Utah offensive line has a great day for the Utah Utes, and I have Utah rushing for over 300 yards at home. Yes, the Buffs front seven can pose some problems, but they're not the greatest pass rushers either. So I think Byrd will have the time to throw. And I just think this Utah team is going to do a better job of getting up to the second level. This offensive line is motivated. They're ready to roll. And I think they have a big game. As for the Utah passing attack, I have multiple guys and kind of in a similar yardage frame here. I don't think anyone really goes crazy. Like I have Dallin Bentley for 40 yards. I think Utah is going to slip him out a lot like they frequently do, where they have him fake blocking and then he's able to get loose quickly. I think he's going to score a touchdown on one of those classic, like, fake the run, pass on like the 1 or 2 yard line. It'll be an easy throw to Bentley. I have Ryan Davis having another productive afternoon. He's going to have 40 yards. I think he's going to have like 6 catches though, but it'll all be like a short span. I think Utah will try to get him the ball, but it's going to be a lot of short passes for this Utah team. The explosive passing offense just hasn't been there for Utah. So I think Ryan Davis is going to be involved frequently. Also, note Tobias Merriweather is not out of this game, but he is listed as doubtful. Took that big hit late last time. That will be somewhat of a loss just because he presents a type of, I don't know how much of a loss it is, I'm be honest, but I want it to be a loss. I like Tobias Merriweather. It's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. He hasn't been the most impactful on the season, right? But I wish he was out there. I still think he gives the Utah Utes their best potential for a big play threat, but yeah, unfortunately, not looking like he's going to play since he is listed as doubtful. Dallas Vakalaki also listed as doubtful, so that could be something there for the run defense. With Utah's D tackles did struggle at times against the run last week, but Bentley with 40 yards, Ryan Davis with 40 yards. I have Larry Simmons with 30 yards. I think he's going to make 2 nice catches in this game, just like he had that crazy one where he mossed the Cougars DB last week. I also have JJ Buchanan getting involved a little bit more earlier in this game than he did, except for late against BYU. I think Byrd will give him a chance, throw it up to him. That's a true freshman he came in with. Byrd to Buchanan could be the future of this Utah passing offense in Salt Lake City. So I think Byrd will give Buchanan some opportunities, and he's able to make some passes too. So those are the 4 guys. I have them all kind of in that 30 to 40 yardage range. I just think it's going to be a lot of like by committee. You're open, just get the ball out. A lot of like spreading the wealth. There's no star pass catcher on this Utah team. Davis and Bentley clearly the best, right? But there's no star. So I think Utah will spread the wealth and get a lot of guys involved. And as I said earlier, I think Dylan Curtis has a nice bounce back game. There will be times Utah will stall in the red zone, whether it's just, the rush defense is better because you're going to have those safeties playing closer to the line. And the Buffs are already going to pack the box, but it'll be even more in the red zone, right? Just some freshman mistakes are going to happen. Some issues in the passing game still with Utah's wide receivers probably. So I think Utah has to settle for some field goals, and I think Dylan Curtis has a nice performance here. I really felt bad for him that he felt the need to apologize this last week for that whole controversy for the prayer thing like that. I think he even said in his statement, like he was just trying to kick, just trying to warm up in that opportunity. He wasn't trying to offend or do anyone wrong. So I feel bad for some of the hate and criticism that he's received, because it feels like to me he was just trying to warm up and do something. I don't even think he really realized everything that was going on because he was locked in. So that's why I hate when some of these college kids get wrapped up in some of the negative attacks on social media. But I think Dylan Curtis bounces back. I think Utah, Kyle Whittingham will use the analytics on some of those shorter field goals, and he's not playing BYU this week, so I don't think he's just going to be touchdown. He'll take the points a little bit more and give Dylan Curtis his opportunities. So yeah, I don't think Byrd will get sacked. I think Byrd will probably get sacked once in this game, but will be on Byrd, just like all of Devon's sacks pretty much this year have been on Devon because the Utah offensive line has been that good. So like I said, Utah's offense will do really well. I haven't settled in for some field goals, but I still have them getting up to 31 points on the afternoon here. As for the defensive side of the ball, you get a Caden Salters coming in, who's made some nice plays for the Buffs right now too. He's, completing 65% of his passes, over 1,000 yards, but hasn't gotten all the run. The Buffs were using some other quarterbacks at points on the air. 9 touchdowns, 4 picks, has been sacked 9 times though too. He's got the 17th best QBR, which I was surprised by, but I don't think this is some crazy elite quarterback that Utah's seen here. I don't think he's Jalen Daniels, Sawyer Robertson, Avery Johnson. I don't think he's those guys. I think he's a step below those guys. He's a good player. He can make some plays with his arm too, but I think Utah has success getting after Salters in this one too. I have John Henry Daly getting home with a sack. I have Utah adding 3 sacks in this one. Whether it's just the ruckus environment of Rice-Eccles Stadium or the crazy blitzes that Morgan Scally brings up, or just the fact that John Henry Daly is going to beat you one-on-one, I do think we see some plays made by this Utah team. You got to be disciplined against Salters. Rushed for 270 yards on the season, 4.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns too. But I think Utah will tighten up some of the tackling, continue. Salters is not built like a Bear Bachmeier. So even though Lander Barton will miss the first half of this one, which is obviously a key loss for the Utah Utes, I do think that they are ready to slow down Salters in this BYU passing game. So they'll get some pressure inside there. As I said, I got John Henry Daly with a sack. I'll go Jonathan Hall and a blitz coming in with a sack, and I'll go Lance Holtzclaw actually getting home as well too. I do think Salters will be thrown off his game. He's going to throw a pick in this one. I have Jackson Benny coming through. He's been the Utes leader in INTs all season. Should have had one against Bear if Teo didn't hold last week. So I see Jackson Benny getting one. I think Utah's defense, just as I mentioned, a really strong performance, even without a Dallas Vakalaki. Buffs offensive line, they're improved. No doubt Jordan Seaton's really good. Jordan Seaton versus John Henry Daly is absolute cinema. The left tackle for the Buffs lining up against the right defensive end for the Utes. That'll be a great battle. I do think Hall, like I said, gets home once, even if that will be a good stalemate back and forth. But I think Utes really hone in on their assignments in this one. The Buffs will move the ball at times, but overall, I think they'll be held under 120 yards rushing. I also think Salters will be held under 250 passing yards. So yes, Colorado will move the ball at times, but I also think there's just going to be some frustrating 3 and outs. Let's not forget how it wasn't that long ago that this offense was trying out different quarterbacks and really unsure of itself, and just teams that look with a resume like the Buffaloes do, that don't have that amazing quarterback. That, yes, Colorado has some good receivers, but they don't have a Chase Roberts, a Jordan Tyson, Their running game is not the best, even though I like that offensive line. Like, this is just not the type of team to me that's built to come into Salt Lake City and win. There's a reason that the Utah Utes are favored by so much on FanDuel. I mean, this game opened, right, with Utah favored by as much as 13 early on. Has that number gone down a little bit? Yeah, but still, I like it barely went down. It's 13.5 still for the Utes. Vegas knows something. And I know some of you guys could be in the comments like, you said that last week about the BYU game. Well, yeah, Vegas looked at this game and saw a Utah Utes team that correctly outgained BYU by 100 yards. But the problem is that they kept chasing points instead of kicking field goals. And they would have had a chance to cover that 5.5 if it were for some better efficiency. And the fact that Dampier did get banged up in the second half, which did change the Utah offense. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying, like, look at Dampier in the first half versus second half. When he's not healthy, this offense isn't the same. So either way, the Utes are the big favorites in this one. I do have Utah covering, as I mentioned too. I think this Utah defense and offense both have a bounce back day. A team win for Utah. Like a couple years ago when Bryson Barnes would come in and win some games with this Utah team, it was a team effort. You'd have Byrd Ficklin making some plays with his arm and legs. You have a Utah defense flying around, just shutting down Colorado. A Muss and a Rice-Eccles Stadium crowd that's going to be ruckus and cause some Colorado penalties and miscues. A Buffs team that is going to look more like themselves that were a little bit out of sync. Sure, they're coming off of a bye, but coming off of a bye, it doesn't matter. They got the Iowa State win. I don't think they're going to be able to get a win against the Utah Utes this week. I'll take Utah 31-17. But this game is going to be on ESPN, so we're excited about that. But the Big 12 has not been racking up the views as they would have hoped so far this season for their biggest matchups. What does that mean for Utah? How should they feel about that? We're going to talk about it. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. There's only one choice last week for the Utah Utes. It's Daniel Bray. He delivered in a big way, right? The big touchdown, making plays in the running game, the jet sweep game. He was outstanding. When the pressure was on, he came through, and Utah needed someone to step up. Ended up being a true freshman in the Holy War rivalry for the Utah Utes. No hesitation, no delay. It was all Bray all day, and week after week, he's been putting in the work and got to perform on the field. And his performance, I don't think it was a fluke. He started a streak, and he'll be involved this week too. I don't know if he'll have the results he did last week, but he'll still be involved. And just like Daniel Bray delivered for the Utah Utes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Feel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. This promo ends November 18th. Head over and start your DoorDash streak today. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The Utah Utes and Colorado Buffaloes got a big clash, a great college football slate, but we also have an outstanding NFL slate because FanDuel has offers you don't want to miss with the NFL season in full swing. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if yours wins. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You know, FanDuel, they just make watching football even more exciting. When you got a little something riding on the action, it makes it more exciting. Plus, whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. As it relates to the Utah Utes this week, as I said with their game against the Buffs, I do think the Utah Utes cover this game. The over-under is 48.5. That's an interesting number right there. I do have them going over on that, as I mentioned. I do think that's a really good spot for it, though. Like I said, I'm going 31-17, so that would hit the over, but we'll see. I can see the under on that one, too. I feel just better about Utah covering the spread, though. That's where I feel this Utah Utes team will cover the spread. Yes, Utah failed to cover it against BYU last week, but it's Utah Utes team at home, and they ain't playing a team the caliber of Texas Tech. Those results usually go in the favor of the good old Utah Utes. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Interesting thing was posted. We're in the midst of the college football season, right? Which I am loving every moment of, but there is always the interesting conversation of TV ratings and brand value and all of that. And there was a unfortunate update that came out from The Athletic's Stuart Mandel, who had some TV data, and this came to us from Stuart Mandel's X, and he had through college football week 8, there have been 27 games that got 5 million viewers so far. And unfortunately, when you distribute those games by conference, you have for who got 5 million or more views. The SEC has had 32 teams deliver that in one of their matchups. The Big 12's had 10. ACC's had 7. Notre Dame 2. And the Big 12 with 1. And it wasn't even because of TCU. It was the North Carolina game in the opener. Even the Holy War only generated 2 million views, which is so disappointing. I think part of that is the 8 p.m. start time, but unfortunately, a part of that is too just, Fox, it markets the crap out of that big noon game, but a lot of the other ones, they don't get the same billing. And it's unfortunate. That's where it would have been nice if that game could have been on an ABC and ESPN, but ABC's got their whole SEC love affair going on, so we knew that wasn't going to happen. And I wonder, too, if Game Day would have chose this game, how much that might have helped the views perform, too. But it is the unfortunate reality that right now, the Big 12 just does not have the brands that elevate this conference on a TV viewership standpoint. When casual college football fans turn on their TV, they're not chomping at the bit to watch a Texas Tech Arizona State. That's a great game. I love both those brands, but the fans just aren't as excited about that. A BYU Utah, I love both of those. I love Utah, obviously, and I have fun with the BYU rivalry, but out east, a lot of people do not care about those two schools, unfortunately. Baylor and Oklahoma State, they're not as important on a Saturday than a lot of those SEC schools are to SEC fans. Even the ACC, you look at the ACC, they have 12 matchups in there, right? Well, Clemson is a bigger brand than anyone in the Big 12. Miami's a bigger brand. Florida State. When the Big 12 and Pac-12 fell apart, they lost their biggest brands to the ACC and the SEC. And hence why some of those ACC and SEC games that have surpassed 5 million viewers have involved former Big 12 and Pac-12 teams. And unfortunately, for the Big 12, they lost their biggest brands. The ACC has kept a lot of theirs, right? You have a North Carolina that's still a show because you got Bill Belichick, and we already mentioned the Clemsons, the Miami, the Florida State too. Those are teams that draw, Miami, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State, Miami, Florida. Those games are going to draw massive eyeballs because those are huge brands as well. And we know just as well too, the population, the state of Florida, all of that as well. What a big history, tradition all go into there. So it's just unfortunate that you see the college football ratings and the fact that people continue to not tune in and watch the Big 12. It's a great conference full of parity, but the problem for the Big 12 still is they don't matter as much in the national college football race. Sure, they might get a team in, but they haven't proven that team that squeaks in is going to make some noise. Sure, they almost beat Texas last year, but it was going to be a massive upset too. So the Big 12 really needs just to kind of elevate their conference footprint. That's why it'd be great if they could get 2 conference teams in this year. If Texas Tech loses another game, I guess BYU will have a shot too if they keep winning, but Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and BYU, we cannot afford those 3 teams to have 2 losses. You know what we really need is the Utah Utes to upset a Texas Tech, avenge their only – Texas Tech goes undefeated in the regular season, and Texas Tech's second loss comes in the Big 12 title game to a Utah. That way, a 1-loss Tech team absolutely gets in, and if you win your conference, you're in. So we need whoever gets in the Big 12 title game, if they have 2 losses, we need them to win, and that way you can start to try and elevate your team and your brand. Although even in some ways, you need to stack it up year after year because they might look at you if a Utah or a Tech get in, they maybe even upset someone. They might look at that as that's just a flash in the pan. So a lot of these brands and programs just have not been dominant forces in college football in the Big 12, and they haven't mattered on the national scale. They haven't always had the highest ranking, and the games just haven't carried as much weight. And unfortunately, part of this too is the ESPN obviously slants their coverage towards the SEC. They don't talk a lot of Big 12, and they don't give the Big 12 the shine and credit they always deserve. So your numbers are going to take a hit because of that. And we're seeing that right now. So it's just unfortunate that in this world of college football ratings and numbers and all of this stuff that a team like the Utah Utes and BYU, they have to pay the price for the lack of coverage too. Their rival only gets 2 million views. But at the same time, it's not just the lack of views because of the network. It's because those brands just aren't as important to the casual college football fan, which just sucks that that's the current state the Big 12 is in. And I hope that changes, but it's definitely disappointing when you see those numbers laid out there. And, sometimes you hear those rumors about Utah going to the Big 10. That might be why, because if Utah had, if you play in Ohio State, I don't want Utah to go to the Big 10. I want them to stay in the Big 12 where I think they have a better chance to win. But if you play in Ohio State, you play in Oregon, whoever, that is a much higher chance of getting you over that 5 million mark, more TV money, more brand exposure, all of that. And right now in the Big 12, it's just harder to do that. That's the unfortunate reality as we currently stand here. But if the Utah Utes want to continue to elevate their brand, it starts with getting a big win against the Colorado Buffaloes this weekend. Cannot wait to see this game get underway. That is going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. As a reminder, you can check out our Locked On Big 12 squad show. We had a blast there. Every Thursday it drops. Jake Hatch hosted this past week, and we had a ton of fun just going back and forth. Of course, some good Holy War banter there. So make sure you check out our Big 12 squad show. Also Locked On Big 12 hosted by Drake Toll, Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football. Tons of options for your second listen every day. But we do appreciate all of you. Make Locked On Utes your first listen every day, especially those of you who are true everydayers with us. We're going to be back. Also, we will be going live after the Colorado game, talking about the outcome. Come stop by if you've never been on one of our post-game chats. Take your questions live, and we either vent it out or celebrate together. It's a therapy session or it's a jovial session, like either one. Make sure you come on and join us. Locked On Utes post-game live after the Colorado game. Look forward to seeing you there. Utah Utes versus the Buffs. Drop your predictions in the comments below, and we'll see you after the game.